One is you should always, 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 in everything that you do, business related, networking, interacting with clients, potential clients, prospects, whatever the case may be, lead with value. Always look to give without expectation, give people gifts, make connections for people, generate referrals for your friends, for people you meet. If you like a brand or a business, tell people about it, advocate for them, right? But always lead with value, give without expectation.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to my show. My name is Tiffany Alexander, and this is Unveiling Journeys. I have a phenomenal guest for you today, and I can't wait to get going. But let me just tell you real quick about me. I love people. I love getting to know more cool people. I love being referred to other people. I love giving referrals to other people. And quite often, what happens is when I hang out with someone, I'm like, there's someone that I need you to know. You're telling me your story and what it is you're all about, and I'm bubbling over with like writing down notes of who it is I could refer you to. And at the end of it, I'm like, hey, here's me. Do you know anybody that I should know? Or you're so cool. How do I get to know more people just like you? So all you have to do is ask, and you'd be really surprised that people are happy to share for the most part. And for the people that aren't, there's another one that's going to give you like 10 people. So um, ask. This is your big thing for me. So I'm excited to hang out with Tom today because we met through the power of networking from a phenomenal human being, Josh. It was like the ridiculous ultimate super connector that I met first. And when we got to know each other and I get to hear his story of his company, I was like, please, will you come on my show so I can tell people what you're all about and what you're doing? And not only that, your company, Talix Media, it's T Alex is the first initial of my first name and the last part of the first part of my first name. So I was like, hey, it's meant to be. Anyway, everybody, please welcome Tom. Tom, do me a favor. Tell everybody a little bit about who you are and what you're up to right now.
Sure. Well, thanks. First of all, thanks for having me, Tiffany. I really appreciate the opportunity to be here with you and to talk to you today. So, as you mentioned, my name's Tom Langan. I own Talix Media. I'm the chief legendeer of Talix Media. We're a full service media production company. We're based in New York in the Hudson Valley, but we work with all kinds of businesses, organizations, entrepreneurs, individuals, and ultimately, at the end of the day, our goal is to help them tell their stories, right? To help them tell their stories well, to reach their audiences, to use their content as a way to build real relationships with the communities that they seek to serve so that they can grow their businesses.
I love that because you're really helping the businesses that are thinking, no, I can't. No, like you're making a big deal. And I like to call it like what people know it as this massive ripple effect. Because when you get to help that business, they get to then continue to help the rest of the people. So it's not just like a pebble, you're making like a boulder in the lake for these people.
Yeah, well, we're definitely trying to, for sure. I mean, that is the goal, that is the mission. Are we, and we're, successful. I'm happy to say most of the time, right? And ultimately, it just comes down to making sure that we're all working on the same page and focused on reaching the same goals. And when that all lines up, then it's hard to not be successful, I think, in the work that we do. So, yeah, I mean, ultimately, it's all about communications and better communications for brands and businesses. That's what I started Talix Media to do, and that's what we do today.
Mm, I love it. You're doing killer stuff. And I know some of the projects you're in are really cool. So let's do this though. I want to tell more of your whole story. Let's start from the beginning. Let's go like I know you said you're in the Hudson Valley, but like are you from there? And then what did you think that you were going to be doing growing up? Like I don't know, obviously like I want to be an astronaut. Some people can't even see my picture, but I am not that. And then what was like first job or school look like? And then we'll start from there and we'll start to weave your whole story in.
Sure, sure. Yeah. So born and raised in the suburbs of New York City, in the sort of lower Hudson Valley, in Westchester County, New York, is where I grew up, and basically have lived here my entire life, except for 4 years where I went to college in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, at Franklin Marshall College, and I spent 4 years there, and then traveled a lot for the first part of my career. So have kind of spent a lot of time around the world traveling. My first career, I mean, it's kind of an extension. I'm just on a new phase of the same career, I guess. But out of college, I ended up kind of stumbling backwards and tripping into a career in television. and that was how I got my first taste of production, and ultimately ended up working my way from a production assistant, which is an entry level job, a PA job. I was fetching coffee, carrying heavy cases of gear around, driving vans, stuff like that. And started there, started at the ground up as an entry level worker, and ended up working my way up to being a showrunner in television and unscripted television. And so basically, what that means was I was responsible for overseeing the series wide production of television shows, managing multi-million dollar budgeted projects, and overseeing the programming from concept development and ideation all the way through the production process and on to final delivery to the network for broadcast. That was the first part of my career, and I spent 17 years in television, and I did some quick back of the napkin math at
Yeah.
one point, and out of that 17 years, I spent 9 years about on the road, roughly. So I've done a lot of traveling. I've been to 48 out of 50 states. I've worked, obviously all over the US, Western Europe, Southeast Asia, even Africa. So I've gotten to travel quite a bit for work, for my career, but, to
Wait,
kind
when
of
you would go all the way over there, what were you doing? Was it I mean, I know it was like your work, but you were the guy, like, over there, right?
Well, when I was traveling, I mean, most of the time most of the extensive traveling that I did overseas, especially, I was either directing shoots, or I was either series producing or show running. So I was either managing or in a supervisory role on those projects, or I was the director of the shoot. So I was, directing the actual content and producing on the ground, sort of in real time, what we were filming. It depended on the sort of where I was in my career as to what exactly I was doing on those trips. But yeah, generally speaking, I was either directing or I was in a supervisory capacity there to help manage the shoot.
And this is something you when you do it this long, like, you loved it. You were in there, was there any moment you were like, "I don't wanna do this anymore?"
Uh, so not really. I mean, rewinding back, like, to your part of your previous question when you said, like, "Tell me your story," like, "What did you wanna be when you grew up?"
Yeah,
Well, television producer was definitely kind of never on that list. I didn't even know really didn't even think that that was, like, a realistic goal. Like, I grew up in a family with sort of, very traditional career paths for, like, the people around me, like, especially my immediate family, my parents. My mom's a retired teacher, my father's a retired, judge and still practicing attorney. So, like, that was my exposure to what careers were, right? Like, it was either you went to college, you went to graduate school, you got a postgraduate degree, and then you went into a professional field. That was kind of like in my childhood, that's what I was brought up to believe, like, that my life would look like, right?
yeah.
Um, and so when I kinda like, I fell into TV, and actually in college, I studied psychology, right? So I didn't study film, I didn't study production, I didn't study media, I studied psychology, and I decided, um, not to go to graduate school. And really my thinking there was very straightforward. At that point in my life, including sort of preschool, I was 22 years old. I'd been in school for 18 years, right? It was literally the only thing I'd known, right? It was school, summer vacation, school, summer vacation, school, summer vacation, right? That was my whole life up to that point. And I just could not reconcile the idea. I couldn't sign on to spend 6 more years in school because I was being encouraged to go for my doctorate in clinical psychology. I couldn't fathom spending 6 more years, kind of securing a degree, um, going through residency training, clinical rotations, etcetera, to get my license to be able to actually start practicing as a clinical psychologist by the time I was around 28 was sort of like a realistic goal. So, like, at 22 years old, being told, like, "Hey, I know school is the only thing you've ever done. How about that's the only thing you do for, like, most of your 20s?" I couldn't do it. I
Yeah.
was like, "I gotta do something else." And so, I told my parents I wasn't gonna go to graduate school, which was funny because, like, it seems like for most people, they hear me say that and they're like, "Yeah, like, okay, so no big deal." I was actually nervous to tell my parents that I
Yeah.
wasn't gonna go to graduate school. I had an older sister who was graduating from medical school. I had a father who's an attorney. I had a mother who's a teacher that had 2 bachelor's degrees, a master's degree, and a professional degree. And my father's also, in addition to being an attorney, he's also a CPA with a degree in accounting and an MBA. So like, I had this like immediate family where I was surrounded by all these people who had higher levels of education, had postgraduate degrees, had gone to graduate school. And I was kind of like nervous to tell them that that was not the path I was going to go down.
How did it
And
go?
so anyway, so I told them, and they said, "Fine, that's it's your choice. No big deal, no problem. Nobody's upset, but, what's your plan for when you graduate?" And I said, "Okay, fair enough. I guess I'm gonna move back to New York." And they said, "Okay, you can come back and you can live here. That's no problem, but you gotta get a job." And so I was on the phone with a good friend of mine from high school, in March of my senior year in college. We were on the phone one night, and I was telling her that, like, my parents were starting to get on my case about getting a job, and when I graduate in a couple of months. And she said, "Well, why don't you call my dad?" And I was like, "Why would I call your dad? That seems weird." And she said, "Well, he's starting a new show." He owned a production company, a television production company, and they were starting up a new show. And she said, "Why don't you call him? He knows you, he trusts you, he likes you. He will give you an entry level job if he's got one available. They need people who will work hard. He knows he can count on you to work hard and get done what he needs to get done. You don't need any experience. It's entry level, right? So give him a call if you want." And I said, "Okay." So I called, and he said, "Yeah, if we've got something, you can have it. If we've got a production assistant job, you can have it because, again, entry level, you don't need any experience or training for it. It's
Nice.
go do this, okay, and you go do it, right?"
Right.
So yeah, so he put me on the phone with the line producer. The line producer was like, "When can you start?" And I was graduating on Sunday. He was like, "Can you start Monday?" And I was like, "No, no, no. I'm graduating in Pennsylvania. I'm gonna still be in Pennsylvania on Monday." And he said, "Okay, how about a week from Monday?" And I said, "Okay, I can make that work." And so I graduated college, and 8 days later, I started my first job in TV.
Oh my gosh, that's so fun. That's so fun. So never would have thought you'd end up there, and then you stayed there for so long and kind of worked your way up the ranks to the guy, right? The director, producer, and obviously you stayed long enough to know you love it. When did it start to like do go in a different direction?
Well, it was fun. Initially, it was fun because everything was new to me, and I'm an incredibly curious person. I've always been that way. I've always want to know why and how things work. I was the kid that like would take his toys apart to figure out how they worked. And actually, this is like a little bit of a point of pride. Most of the time, when I put them back together, they work. There are like a few exceptions where like I couldn't quite get it to work the same again, but most of the time, after I took the toy apart, when I reassembled it, it worked. So, a little point of pride there, but, like, I'm a ridiculously curious person. I used to drive my parents nuts, asking them why about everything. They used to send me out. We had this room off of our living room that we just called the porch. It used to be a screened-in porch, but it had been, closed in before my parents bought the house. But this so on that in that room on the porch, we had a big bookshelf, and on the bookshelf was a set of encyclopedias. And so, like, I would be driving my parents nuts, asking them questions, and they'd be like, "Why don't you go look it up?" So I go look it up, and then to their chagrin, I would come back and tell them everything that I just learned in the encyclopedia looking up. Because my assumption was, well, if you're not telling me, that's because you don't know. So now I'm helping you by explaining to you what I discovered. But yeah, so I was an overly curious person. So it was kind of fun immediately for me because it was all brand new. Everything was new, and it was unlike anything I'd ever done before, and I didn't know anything about it, and that was actually probably one of my favorite things when I first started working in productions. I didn't have any sort of preconceived notions going into it. I was just there to be curious and learn, and then ultimately over time, what kept me there was the sort of adventure of it, and this is probably something that most people will not see as a selling point, but it's a very itinerant industry in that, there is not a lot of, like, job security for most people, right? And so you go to work on a project, you work on that show for 6 months, a year, sometimes multiple years, but you work on that show, and when that show's over, you're out of a job. Like, it's not like the company you work for just moves you on to another show. That does happen sometimes, but more often than not, you gotta go find another job somewhere else.
Wow.
So it has a very sort of, like, itinerant quality to it, uh, and so there was always an adventure, right? There was always something new, a new project, new people to work with, new places to go, new people to see, things to learn about. So there was always that sort of it was always kind of scratching that curiosity itch for me. And so I really loved that. And then also, the more I moved up in through the ranks and sort of, in my work, the more I got to work directly with people and lots of different people from lots of different walks of life. And not only did I get to work with them, in terms of, like, pointing a camera at them and directing them on camera, but also working behind the scenes to produce what we were doing with them, to, help them through the process. For a lot of people that I worked with over the course of my career, it was the first time they'd ever been in front of a camera. It was
Huh.
the first time they'd ever been on television. And so I got to spend a lot of time sort of working with people through the process of learning how to tell stories, how to deliver information on camera, how to be, how to present sort of, their trains of thought, and their perspectives in a clear, cogent way for the audience that they could understand. So yeah, I mean, all of those things, it kind of scratched a lot of itches for me.
I feel like this actually was a perfect scenario for you to have come through like a psychology degree because you understood deeper than just people knowing by being around a lot of people what people are thinking or feeling and why and how to get people to think or feel or overcome or get through all of this stuff. Because I remember just one semester of psychology, I was like, this stuff's phenomenal. Like the curiosity's got me too. The bug is like, I never want to stop learning on things. But I bet you that was so inadvertently awesome to know really this deeper than everyone else and early on because people who don't have a degree trying to get in and like direct and produce, like, no, 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 imagine with me, like telling a story and then getting their brain to go with you. That's fun.
Yeah, it was incredibly accidentally fortuitous, right? Because I think one of the things is the amount of time that I spent studying psychology. I mean, again, I have a bachelor's degree. It's not like I am a psychologist by any stretch of the imagination, right? There are lots and lots of people who majored in psychology just like me. Uh, it is not, it is not a usable degree in that sense, right?
No, I
Uh,
think the curiosity is what gets you further though. Like you didn't just take it and you're like, cool, thanks. You like, no, I really am interested in people, like,
Yeah, I'm interested in people. I'm interested in sort of what motivates and moves and makes people tick and helps influence the decision making that people engage in. But beyond that, I think the probably one of the most valuable things that I took away from my time studying psychology was, an ability or a skill to be able to put myself and really in the other person's shoes, to really sort of like empathize with them in that I was open to or flexible with their perspective. I think that's one of the things that a lot of people struggle with, especially when it comes to helping, sort of teach and train people to deliver stories, to tell their stories, right? Whatever the case may be, is they don't do a good job of putting themselves in the other person's shoes, right? Or allowing the other person's story to be their own. And so that's something I sort of had a skill for, and maybe I had a skill for that, sort of a predilection for it, and then I studied psychology and that kind of heightened it. I don't know, but at the end of the day, it was something I was good at, and so it helped me. be better at my job in television, working with people, and in my career now, working with brands and businesses. Because at the end of the day, they're all made up of people.
Yeah.
So, if you're good at working with people and helping people and making people feel comfortable in uncomfortable situations, then it works to your benefit, right? It
Yeah.
certainly has for me.
I love that. Where does it bridge the gap from your, previous job to go opening your company you have now?
Yeah, so I mean that story is really straightforward, right? I mean, if you remember back a couple of years ago, obviously it was all over the news, but there were the big sort of WGA, the Writers Guild, and SAG-AFTRA, the actors union strikes that happened in response to sort of treatment by sort of the studios, and ultimately it was broadcasters, right? Distributors of content, so to speak, and commercial distributors of content. And so, um, really, those were the writing was on the wall for those incidents to take place, those strikes to take place back in 2018, and that was when I decided to leave the industry. It had sort of stopped being fun and exciting and had started being something that I wasn't really proud of anymore. And for me, like ultimately, when it came down to it, I think if anything, from having the lifestyle that I had, working in television, again, having that itinerant, transient nature to my career path, and being used to leaving jobs or not having a job, more often than most people do in their whole lives, I think, uh, you know, I was perfectly comfortable saying, you know what, I'm going to walk away from this. And I genuinely, it's not like I started Talix Media and then I decided to leave TV. I decided to leave TV, and it was sort of like, okay, well, what do I do now? Um, and and really, like, the genesis of the idea came from a couple years before. My then girlfriend, now wife, and I had been watching something on cable TV. We haven't had cable in like more than a decade now, but back then we still had cable. And we were watching something on TV, and a local commercial came on, and I just turned to her and I said, "I could do better than that." Right? And I remembered that moment, and I was like, "Well, maybe there's an opportunity there." And I started looking around through the lens of like, what are people doing well in sort of branded or business content and communications, and what are they not doing well? And I found that there was a lot lacking, and there's a lot of opportunity for my experience, and sort of my training in television to be put to bear to benefit brands and businesses to communicate more effectively. And so that's what I kind of started Talix Media to do, and that's what we continue to try to do now.
I love it. Now, since 2018, you've been crushing it. I mean, like, you got to grow your business and you've done some incredible things for some amazing companies. And I mean, it's not easy work. Yeah, it might be a little bit of your fun, happy place, but like, why do you keep showing up? Why do you keep doing what you do?
Um, I keep showing up and doing what I do for, I mean, a multitude of reasons, I think, which is good, right? If there was just one reason, I think it would probably be a little bit too fragile. And I think for a lot of people, if there's just one reason behind what you're doing, it's probably a little bit fragile, right? And a little bit tenuous. So from my perspective, I show up and do what I do. One, because I love the work, right? I love the creative work. At the end of the day, if I had to characterize what I do, I would describe it as creative problem solving. And that's something that I've always loved. I've always been a good problem solver, and I love working through problems and trying to find novel solutions for things. And so, like, that's my favorite part of what I do, and that gets me excited about all kinds of different projects with all kinds of different clients all the time. So that's probably on a personal level. That's one. Um, uh, on a personal level, it's to take care of my family, right? I mean, I gotta keep a roof over our heads. I gotta keep food on the table, and I love what I do, so I want to keep showing up and doing it more and more for different brands and for different people all the time so that I can provide for my family. And then also ultimately, like, if I want to be romantic about things for a second, I have sort of taken on a bit of a mission, right? So I found in my career, my second career, so to speak, in the sort of in the business space, I found a lot of things lacking, and I've done a bunch of research. Again, I'm overly curious. Done a bunch of research, and I've kind of traced a bunch of it back to, there was an economist, a Nobel laureate, Milton Friedman, who wrote an op-ed that was published in the New York Times in 1970 that essentially said that the only thing that businesses have to do, the only sort of cause for business ethics, uh, is to generate higher and higher profits. Right? They are only beholden to their shareholders and their ownership to generate higher profits. And as long as they do that within the sort of the rules of the game, is actually literally how he phrased it. As long as they do that legally, then anything goes, right? And his theory was, which has proven to be completely not true, but his theory was that the market would correct businesses if they started to drift away from doing things that were good for society. And I think if we look at the current business climate, and the scale of some of the monopolistic businesses and the monopolistic business practices that we see at the hands of some of the largest corporations that we interact with on a regular basis, I think we all would agree that Milton Friedman was dead wrong about the market correcting, right? That businesses and brands, in order to return higher and higher profits, would push as far as they could, including lobbying to rewrite the rules of the game so that they benefited them and not everybody else, right?
Right. Yeah.
And so as a result of all of that, um, and I could go on for like an hour about that, but I won't. As a result of all of that, I've kind of taken on the mantle of this broader mission to humanize the world of business through better communications. And to me, what that means is part of my job and my mission is to help businesses relearn how to communicate with the communities that they want to serve, and to remind them to always treat those communities and those customers and those consumers uh, as the human beings that they are, and
Yeah.
not like dollars and cents on a P&L, and not like data points on a spreadsheet, which is how large brands and businesses are taught to treat people. And so I'm kind of trying to unwind some of that, and get us to a place where businesses, it is in the business's interest to treat their community like human beings, and that they everyone can benefit from those sorts of relationships. And so, like, in a romantic perspective, right? Like, that is one of the big things that motivates me on a regular basis to do what I do.
I love the way you were able to word that. That's really fun perspective to look at the way that you keep pressing forward with all this. And this is what's happening. People right now are listening to this are like, I want to know you. I want you to take a peek at what it is that I'm doing. Where's your favorite way that you want people to come find you?
Yeah, I mean, the easiest way is on LinkedIn. I don't have any sort of protections on my profile there. You don't have to know my email address to connect with me. So, like, I would encourage people, just look me up on LinkedIn. You can find me at Talix Media LLC, there, and connect with me. Reach out. Would love to get to know people, set up meetings. Tell me you know Tiffany if you do, and we'll definitely get something set up. And then the other thing is, if people are interested in sort of my philosophy and how I work and the work that I do, another great way to learn about that and how maybe they can incorporate some of what I do into what they do is by reading my book Legendeering. It came out a couple of years ago, and it's available everywhere books are sold. So if you've got a local bookshop that you like, I would encourage you to actually go to that bookstore, talk to somebody behind the counter, ask them to order my book for you, and get it there rather than ordering it from you know who.
Yeah, anyone else. Agree, agree. I love that. Legendeering. Guys, you're gonna go check it out. And if you're like, oh, Tiff, I can't find Tom, shoot me a message. I'll get you guys connected because Tom is accessible. He wants to be available for those people that need him. And business owners, listen up. Yes, absolutely. All right. This is it. Last two questions. what's next? Like, what's on the horizon?
I mean, right now, the big focus is on growing Talix. Like, I am, and I'm the first to admit that I am not. When it comes to business, for business's sake, I am not a good businessman. Right? Like, I conduct my business well. We are great at fulfilling for our clients, but I am not a good nuts and bolts businessman. I took one business law class in college, and that was it. So like, right now we're in the process of scaling the business, and I'm bringing on team to do that. So we've got folks, doing some lead generation for us. We're interviewing right now for building out our sales team. Next steps after that are obviously people running operations, et cetera. So we're in sort of a scaling and growth phase right now. That's probably the number one biggest thing that we're working on right now, and it's to grow the impact of Talix Media and Legendeering, and again help shift business towards that sort of human-driven, communicative strategy that I lay out in my book Legendeering.
Oh, I love it. That's incredible. All right, this is our last question, and it's really like, what do we want to end with? What's your golden nuggets of wisdom that we should be the last thing that people hear from you in this episode?
Yeah. So I think there's two things that I want to say to that, and they're related. One flows from the next, if you'll indulge me really quickly. So they are very simple, right? One is you should always, 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 in everything that you do, business related, networking, interacting with clients, potential clients, prospects, whatever the case may be, lead with value. Always look to give without expectation, give people gifts, make connections for people, generate referrals for your friends, for people you meet. If you like a brand or a business, tell people about it, advocate for them, right? But always lead with value, give without expectation. And then the other thing is, for all you business owners out there or all you business leaders out there, whatever you do in any of your communications, remember to put your audience first. Often businesses, the sort of classic mistake that businesses make is they make content for themselves, talking about what they're focused on, what they're most proud of, what they're most excited about,
Yeah.
but they're not the audience,
Yeah.
right? So make content for your audience and make sure that it delivers for them first.
Hmm. Man, that's good. I think a lot of people lose sight of that, which is why you're obviously doing what you do. This has been incredible. I love being able to hear your story, and I'm so grateful for your time. And these are going to make some incredible shorts. So it's just going to be fun to be able to have our full episode drop and then some shorts for all your little golden wisdom nuggets. And everybody who's staying this far, thank you for your time too. I'm so grateful that you got to come and hang out with me and Tom and be able to share his story. And go look him up. Go look up his book. Like he said, go to your local bookshop and order that today. And if you're like, Tiffany, no, just go back. I'll get you hooked up. And I will see you guys on the next episode. Thanks again, Tom. Have a great day.